Okay. Good morning. Can you hear me all? Is it okay at the rear front? Fine. A bit louder? Okay. So I don't know, how creative it's gonna be. At least it's morning, so half is done. I found quite funny when I saw this picture because it reminded me of this picture, which was above my bed till 1986. So let's see the similarities. Okay, this is obviously done probably by graphic designer. This is done by architect, and it's done by pretty good architect actually. This poster is done by Michal Briggs, who you might know as the author of Airport in Prague. So not an ordinary architect. And I have to say that the poster was really influential, at least on me, and because when my father bought it to me, I thought this is the best architecture. There couldn't be anything better than this. And then later I thought, this is not that bad. And then a couple of years later, I felt like, well, okay. So at least it gave me some time from at least 7 years till 16 to develop my taste. And sometime I really thought this is not that bad either, but okay. And then the second influential picture is this one, and it's hard to find a spot in your memory when you decided to do something like what are you gonna do as your occupation. And I think this was my moment when I was 6 or 7, and I think I've been staring at this picture for a year or two, and but I don't think I really understood what's on that picture, because I made a crucial mistake, and I thought this and this is somehow related. And as a really good architect, Rudy Ricciotti, he once said that he thought that architecture is outdoor occupation. And I had the same feeling also. I thought like, okay, so you are in the nature and doing this, and this is gonna happen at the end, and all these people have to work on it. So it felt really as a pretty good thing. But my sister said that I like the picture only because of this. But okay, that might be another explanation. Let's start with short video. Hope it's gonna work. Let's see. At least proper ending. Okay, that video basically showed one thing that, and that's gonna be the only thing I'm gonna be talking about today. And I'm not 100% sure that it was really clear, because what you seen on that video was that the cities are getting bigger. No, that's basically it. And it sounds logical, no? It's like, well, cities are getting bigger. So, but the problem is, or the topic is, that its population is not getting so much bigger. Let's say Las Vegas, maybe in these last 25 years, I think it might doubled its population maximally, but the size of it changed definitely more times than twice. And the same goes for every other city, as we've seen in the video, and not only these. So what does it mean? Like, the cities are getting bigger in terms of population, but they are way, way more bigger in terms of size. That means that the relationship between the population and the size, which is called population density, is getting lower and lower. And I think that's the major topic we should talk about. And I would be really happy if that would be clear at the end of the talk. And that you can look at the cities with understanding this meaning. And it might be really simple. It might be, okay, well, you know, it's and so. But I think it has a really deep influence on everything which surrounds us. I was born, or I spent 19 years of my life in this city. This is how it looked in 1890. It had something around 1,000 people. In 1918, at the beginning of this state, it looked like this. You could see small change that, you know, in here, somebody really started to work on something. And, well, in 10 other years, this got a bit bigger, and it has certain consequences like this and these. And, well, it really went pretty fast, I would say. So, you know, like, if you imagine that before there was really almost nothing, and then suddenly this, and then all really these, and I spent my life here, so that also explains like what happened afterwards. And this is Zlín, city in Moravia, and this is Baťa shoe factory, and this is everything which is related to it, mainly housing. And I particularly like this combination, because what you are looking at is exactly the same map in exactly the same scale. You know, like, it takes a while to adjust, but this is a castle, this is a castle, and this is the historical square, and this is a bit changed historical square. And yeah, so it looked a bit different, no? So I think there's also major estimation that the cities are always the same, or its development is really slow, that they are really, let's say, rigid, and they somehow you know, are not really changeable really fast. But in these pictures you could see that you know, it doesn't take so long. So this is 1909 in pictures, and this looks pretty scary, you know, I would say. At least, you know, it reminds me something else. But it's really housing. It's been developed for. The idea when it was done was that this might work for 15 or 20 years, and then it's going to be teared down and it's going to be replaced. And now it's national heritage. So it's protected, and it's difficult to change the window after 80 years. But it really looked differently right now, because it's basically, it's invisible because it's behind trees. This is how the public space of the city look like. We're gonna get to that topic a bit later. Yeah, this I think is even a bit more scary than the previous one. But still, this right now is understandable as something really high quality. And that also reminds me that whenever you see something new, I think you should bear this image in mind. You know, like, this is how it looked when it was new, and if you visit it today, I think your idea and your feeling about this would be a bit slightly different than from these pictures. I start with two quotes from Andy Warhol, which I found particularly interesting. I think having land and not ruining it is the most beautiful art that anybody could ever want to own. And the other one is even better, I think. I love towns, because in every town there is a village inside, but there is no town in any village. And this is also good to know, I think. Because like all the time when I hear talk about natural environment, the first thing I think about are cities. I never think about like nature, like it sounds natural environment, okay, it's gonna be about nature, but let's see how much time we spent in there. I start with the vocabulary, and I'm sorry to be this kind of pedantical, but I think it's really necessary to be clear. So let's start with the definition. What's the population density? I guess everybody knows, but okay, let's be clear. So it's about its amount of people living in 1 square kilometer. In central Mumbai, where we worked on one project, is 49,000 people per square kilometer. If you hear that fact kind of as a lone fact, then it doesn't say much to you. But let's say if we compare it to something else later. This is another type of density, and it's not a density of people, it's not a density of population, it's a density of built form. And I think those two things are somehow very often, like people really mismatch them, or they think like, okay, it's pretty much the same, or there's a relationship between it. And if it's dense in terms of built form, it also means it's going to be dense in terms of population and vice versa. It's not true. This is Amsterdam. It looks pretty packed, I would say. Like if this is water, if you get rid of the water, then you would think, like this is pretty covered. But if the size of one unit is 300 square meters, and it's occupied usually by 1 or 2 persons, then the amount of people living in there is this, which is, like it's not necessarily low, but it's definitely not high. Then I think the popular idea of density is lots of high buildings, or like that's really okay. If we want to find the most dense environment in the planet, it's gonna be something with skyscrapers. Manhattan, I don't know what, Dubai, yeah. Dubai sounds like, well, it's gonna be dense, and that popular idea, of course, is supported by Hong Kong, which is one of the most dense cities in the world, or let's say maybe the densest one. But it's not really done because of high buildings, but because it's an island, or it's really with limited amount of land, which couldn't be bigger, and it's really small. Sorry, let me get back. I think this one is a bit more interesting because this is Dharavi. It's in Mumbai. It's one of the biggest slums in the world. It has 1 million people or something like that. And it is 4 times more dense than Hong Kong. But the highest building in there is something like 3 to 4 stories, nothing more. So, like how come that this kind of carpet could be like way more dense than Hong Kong? And of course, the first idea would be, well, because there are no streets, and there are almost no streets, because let's say the amount of land which is occupied by buildings is pretty big, but the major difference is something else. And so if it's only 3 or 4 stories high, it means it's a low rise. It's no skyscrapers. It's no tall buildings. And a low rise is always associated with urban sprawl. And urban sprawl is always associated with low density. It's something, like this would occupy so much land and basically not many people could live in. Then also the public transport wouldn't work and so on and so on. I think this is heavily criticized in last 10 or 15 years. But this is kind of important. This is so-called FSI, or the other term would be FAR. FAR is floor area ratio, and FSI means floor space index, but that's pretty much the same. And it speaks about the amount of interior space in a ratio to the plot. And so let's say if you covered the plot entirely by 1 floor, it means 1. If you cover it just half, it's half. If you covered 2 floors, half of it, it's also 1. That's clear. And these 3 types have exactly the same floor area ratio. So, they look differently, but in mathematical terms, for the city, they mean exactly the same. And but now we are getting to probably the most important thing that it's not very discussed. And it's really the amount of interior space per person. And that's probably the major difference between Hong Kong and Dharavi. And it means that we found that average amount of square meters per person in Mumbai is 4.5. So, like that means, which is 14 times less than the US. So that would explain let's say that built form might be exactly the same, but the amount of people living in it in Mumbai would be 14 times bigger, and that's quite a difference. And okay, let's see these kind of like small combinations. So these are densities of pretty big cities, from Mumbai to Shanghai. And in Mumbai, not only the central, but the whole city, it's 29,000 people per square kilometer. And on the other hand, we've got Los Angeles, which is a bit more, over 3,000, which is 10 times less. What do you think? Where is Prague? Any idea? Anybody of you like know what's the exact density of Prague? I found it's pretty amazing that we live in this city, but basically everybody knows, I think, that Prague is something like 1.2 square kilometer or 1.2 million people. That is kind of clear. But not that many people know that the administrative borders of Prague are something around 500 square kilometers. And that means that the density is 2,600. So it's less than Los Angeles. And if you bear in mind, like if you ever been to, or if you think of Los Angeles, and you think of this like really big infrastructure, if you think about all these storage spaces, all these family houses with pretty big plots related to these family houses, and yet it has higher density than Prague, I think there is something to think about. This is about the amount of people. It's not that really important, but this is exactly about the square meter per person. And if Mumbai is this, and Tokyo, which would be understood as a really packed city, as something really of high density, then once you see this relationship, you realize maybe that the density of Tokyo is not that high. So I come back. Yeah, so it's less than half of Mumbai. So, like it's not that crazy. And if you look at Shanghai, which you might also think that's such a crazy and packed city, and you realize it's 1/5, it's also something to think about. This, I think, is quite interesting, that in New York and Los Angeles, the amount of square meters per person is pretty much the same. And this goes back to the idea of Andy Warhol. I think that if you know London pretty well, then in the central parts there's this which is called London Mews, with like tiny streets going through the inner blocks, and suddenly you just like leave the pretty big high street, and then you are in this kind of environment, and they somehow are able to live together, which I don't think is necessarily great quality of Prague, because I don't know if these inner blocks are such accessible and used in this way. I'll show you a couple of images of my own, and these are two students of architecture. This is my friend Jan Magasani, who worked for 7 years in Copenhagen, and I think it's, I don't know, almost 10 years old picture, and that explains something about the students of architecture. At least I could speak about myself. As a student, I cared only about buildings. I never cared about anything else. I never cared about people. I never cared about space, public space or whatever. I was really obsessed with buildings. And that obsession it's really shown on this image, because like we've been taking pictures even of buildings which are unfinished. In this case, maybe there was just a desk, and yet you had the idea that it's almost done, and you have to see it, and you have to be there first, and all these kind of estimations. And it took me a while to understand that maybe there are more important things than buildings. And before I get to people, I went through spaces. And this is really, if you are a fan of a complex thinking, then you're going to be disappointed, because this is going to be really straightforward. But it's just done to make something clear and just to start the discussion. I started to collect images of different type of spaces all around the world. And basically I divided them in two parts. The upper part is something which is relatively new, and the lower part is something which is relatively old or relatively traditional. And after a while, you're going to see a pattern that there is a slight difference between these two types of spaces. Okay, so That would be the difference between Dubai and Los Angeles. This guy doesn't live there. He's just working. By the way, this image is taken here. And this is pretty interesting, actually. The Sheikh of Dubai, his previous occupation, he was an army pilot. And I think he understood what does it mean to look at things from the top. And he realized that, especially with the invention of Google Earth, because in that moment, I think like somewhere around year 2000, the properties start to be sold based on the fact how it looked from the Google Earth. And because normally it's been done and it's been sold and you even didn't go there because you had no time to go there, so you wanted to buy it first. And I think they realized that this is such an amazing thing. It's really, you can, in New York, you can show to a friend of yours that you're living here. And, he would be like, wow. And if you show the tallest tower in the world, then there's only a shadow, like that's not really nice to show. So he was like, okay, I live in this like 800 meters tall tower. And it's like, so what? So this became a kind of like even primer economical tool. And the other thing is when this hit the world, everybody said, like, okay, so it looks like a palm leaf or something like that. So what's about it? But I think it's pretty smart, actually. It's a shape which has the maximum circumference and the minimum surface. That's the idea. If you compare it to the circle, this is 8 times more effective. You've got 8 times more of a beach and, like 8 times less of your concerns. And I remember talking to one of the developers of this from Nakheel, and I think this would be pretty harsh, but we came there as Europeans saying something like, well, but maybe the level of the sea will rise and this will be gone. And he said something like, well, I'm waiting till that moment because we already get some money out of it and then it's going to be gone and we have no concerns about it. Like that explains something about like how the development is done in recent years, because like you don't care so much about sustainability. You don't care how it's going to look in 100 years. Like, you're not going to be here, so what? Then let's take a look on other combinations of images. This one as a cradle of football, like really done in the dense area with even fences and these kind of tribunes and even with artificial lights. And then just this empty space in Mumbai. Sorry. Again, this one as a city created for cars and a city which didn't care about anything like this. And then in one major road, you would have everything from cars, from buses, from trucks, from really everything, like cyclists, motorcycle, even cows, people walking, taxis, everything in there. And I've never seen a traffic jam in there. It's always moving somehow. This is particularly my favorite 2 sets of images because they are from the same city. And the one is from the center, from the touristical historical center, and the one is from the suburbia. And the population density of the suburbia is 10 times higher than the population density of the center. So, like you look at the images and the first look you would say, okay, this is dense, this is not. It's exactly vice versa. And these 2 guys, they are my classmates, so it's not somebody like walking on the street. I think that speaks something about where we spent our times. I remember when I was 6, then the biggest punishment I could get was that I can't go out. And I talked to a friend of mine whose kid is 6, and he said that the biggest punishment could be like, you have to go out. So that changed, I think. It's a combination of 2 public spaces close to the ocean. One with the asphalt on the ground and not really interesting, and the other one really well done with all these beautiful fountains and pavements and Yeah. Okay. Again, slight difference, I think. One of the biggest parks I've ever been in my life in Chandigarh, and I walked one way and back, and I think I've met two people, and then later I talked to my Indian friends, and they said, "Well, but you can't earn any money by living in the park, or by just lying there. So why should we go there?" This is just under the bridge in suburbia in Paris. This one, it's really, it's a work of one of the most famous architects in the world of 20th century, Le Corbusier. And it is a new major public space for the new democracy in India, somewhere in between the court and the parliament. And the only problem is that in here there's a guy and he's pointing a gun towards you, a machine gun. And once you walk, like, that really follows you, like this. And I have to say that it's pretty strong tool to create this kind of atmosphere. Then this is a work of the second most important architect of the 20th century, Oscar Niemeyer. These are my classmates, so again, like don't be mistaken, it's that popular. And it's a cultural district. And this is a picture taken from my home in Paris 7 years ago. And this is a particularly very interesting day. It's called Fête de la Musique. It happens every 21st of June. So if you would like to go to Paris and to see this, it happens every year, I recommend. And the interesting thing is that I cared about how it's organized, because the idea is that in one day, almost everybody who is able to play on something, he's just on the street and he's playing. And I thought, like, this is amazing. So it's like 2,500 bands, like, simultaneously doing concerts. How can you organize? And they said, well, it's really easy. It's an idea of French Ministry of Culture of Jacques Lang, that in one day there's you don't need any permission to take over the public space, and there is no limits for noise. Like, nobody can complain about that you are producing noise, even till 1 a.m., I think. And that's everything which is necessary to organize this. So basically, it's not about that you organize something, but it's something that you loosen the limits, and then this is going to happen. By the way, even normally, this is one of my favorite spaces ever I've been to. It's called Place de la Contrescarpe. It's in 5th district in Paris. And what's really great about it is that there are these cafes and restaurants, and you can sit here. This is normal roundabout, so accessible by cars, which pretty frequently go there, but they can't park there. I think that's the major idea. You can go there by car, you can basically get out of it, but after 5 seconds, somebody's going to be horning at you and would say, like, move on. And that kind of creates a tension, and it works together. So it's not about it must be this pedestrian zone to be successful public space. I think these combinations are very healthy. And here there's small fountain, and you are surrounded by trees, and it's really a pleasant area. Again, we are in Brasilia, and these are 2 chambers of the parliament, and this was pretty much the same idea of Le Corbusier as this kind of generous public space lifted above the ground, or let's say in the same level of the ground, because this ground goes down. And yet there are 4 accesses with 4 guys with 4 machine guns, so that's how it works. This is one of my favorite spots. It's Venice in Las Vegas. We are inside, of course. And I remember a short story of great French architect François Roche, when he said something like, if you compare this Venice and the real Venice, this one is better in every sense. It's 21 degrees every day because that's the best temperature for shopping. There is pretty big research behind it. you can speak English, like there's more variety of food. It's less dangerous. It's like it's clean. And let's say the major difference is that the gondoliers can sing. Because there is a rail underneath the boat, and there's a motor which moves the pedal, so they could be professional singers because they don't need to be able to navigate the boat. So they just stand there, like. And what I really like is the belts that you have to fasten your seat belts in the gondola. That's really amazing. So yes, there is, and on the other hand, the historical one, it's smelly, full of tourists. You can't speak English, and so on, of course. Okay, else. This to me is a kind of image which shows the architect's idea how to improve public space. But I think I'm gonna move forward. That's another two types of images, and this should show that right now, to create a popular public space, you need a kind of event. You need something that's going to happen in there. Like it can't be just a public space. And this event, it's just a rupture of the pipe of water, which was great. And I love this one because I've been taking pictures of these people for several years, and I hope you know what is it. In reality, it's really like old clock with 12 people like doing this, but and it creates such a high amount of emotions. I found always this really tricky, but yeah, you just look at it, Yeah. And this picture was probably the most influential on me after that illustration from the book when I was 6. And I've seen this in Paris several years ago. And this is normal road accessible for cars, which is pretty busy during the weekdays. And this happened during the Sundays. And it's been decision of Bertrand Delanoë, of the mayor of Paris, from the time I think he's mayor till now, and he had this idea that at least for Sunday this could be closed for cars and it could be used differently. And I remember when he came up with this idea, that of course he faced pretty harsh criticism, and the criticism started with pretty strong statement that we can't do this because it will be too expensive. And he said, well, it's one traffic sign and then another one in here. Maybe, we would be able to do that in Paris, no? And he said, well, okay, but Mr. Mayor, you are forgetting one thing, and that's if you close it in here and if you close it in here, that would mean that cars can't pass by and they have to pass somewhere else, and it means that in other places the situation will be worse. And he said, yes. And that to me was really striking, because I think that's the way how to handle public debates. You can't say, no, it wouldn't, because of course it will be. And I know it's really clear. And but you have to say, okay, we are making this better, and it means we are making something else worse, but we still think it's worth to do it. And that's, I think that's politics, no? Because you have to think about two things which are maybe pretty much almost in the same level, and you have to decide which one is more important and which one is less. And if you look at this image, or you just see somebody sitting here, with the bag in here, and then in here you can lie here, play cards, talk, whatever. Then you can slowly walk. You can again sit here. You can sit also here. Then you can rollerblade, you can go on the bicycle, you can be close to this handrail and look at these people, and if that would be clean, you can swim. And nothing changed, no? In terms of design. So this was a bit, I have to say, it was a bit depressing to me as an architect, that it's no such a deal that you don't have to like put new benches in here and new lights and I don't know new pavements. You could like leave it as it is, and you can only just allow different type of usage. So it's more about the conditions and laws than about how it really look like. I'll skip these. This one is also, I think, pretty interesting. It's in Rio, and it's a beach which is called Copacabana, which has been understood as one of the major qualities of Rio. And then there was a decision of mayor and his advisors that they can improve it. And everybody was like, how can you improve it? And they said, well, okay, let's put lights in there, no? And these are not a kind of like normal lights. These lights are, I think, like 30, 40 meters tall. These are these types of lights which are usually used to artificial lightings of football matches. So it's pretty strong. And this distance from here to there is something like 200 meters. So, but what it means is that after you come from work in 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., you can go there. It's warm and it's safe, and you can use it as during the day. And I think that's really major improvement. Okay. This is a railway market in Thailand. I recommend to put it on YouTube and watch the video, not just image, because I think it's just amazing. The train is going something like 10 kilometers per hour, and they are moving this, like, I don't know, like 5 meters before the train, maximum, maybe 2 meters, 1 meter or something. It looks like natural combination of two things doing just one thing together, or it is really crazy. And that's, of course, like that's an extreme, but this is another extreme. It's in Hrachanska. It's been done recently. I've shown this image to some people, and I think the majority like it. They are like, that's nice, no? It's really nice green in a city. So what's to criticize? I think it's terrible. I mean, seriously, this is really badly done. The cars should be closer to that line, and then that space could be on the other side, and then it could be used because, like, I don't know if this is really for picnic or. But I just found this crazy, and this is a very typical solution for Prague. It is this kind of like greenery which is good for looking at. That's the major purpose of it. So it's not for anything else. And by the way, that's my definition of Prague. It's a nice city to look at from the distance. But like if you go on the tower and you see the horizons, I mean, the most beautiful city in the world. But once you get in, different story. This is Tate Modern. I hope you've been in, at least some of you. And it is an important institution, museum, but what I found more important is that basically this, which is inside, is a public space. Like maybe not exactly public space by definition, but at least it has certain qualities of a public space. That means you can sit on the ground, you can eat your own food, you can drink your own drinks, like you can run, and then nobody would say anything to you. So at least you feel like it belongs to you and you can use it. And then that's also another great thing about UK, that the access is for free, and you have to pay only for the temporary exhibitions. But there are usually in the 4th, 5th, and I don't know, 6th floor, and then you pay in there. You don't pay on the border between the building and the space. You just get in and you use it, and then you pay somewhere in deeply inside. And I think that's really important. Because then you can really feel like in a public space. And I think it's really worth to compare it to this space, which I hope you also know. It's a National Gallery in Prague. And, in a way, there are some similarities, but I think there are rather major differences. And the difference is that this is not a public space. You have to pay before you get there, and basically there's always somebody walking behind you, just like like looking what you do, and that really scares you, and so you can't do anything naturally in there. So it has these consequences, and This one is a small research we've done with students in Brno, and it's been really straightforward. And the black thing is, of course, buildings, and the white thing is empty space. And somehow I meet many people who say, this is better. Or if they describe it, they say something like, there is more of a space, so there's more of a green, there's more of like air, and it's more healthier, and it's really great. And this is really terrible, like I would not like to live there. But think of you when you go to the holidays. I think you go all the time to these places. I don't think you go to Petržalka, Bratislava, really to spend your time. Or like the suburbia of Brno or Vienna. So I think it's something to think about. And of course, there is some like healthy proportion. I think somewhere in the middle, which would say something 50-50, which I think could be applied to Davidse, where we are right now. I love definition of this. It's by Charles Moore, a great architect. He said, if the revolution is cold, you should know where to go. And really, this is clear. In here, that would be really difficult. So. And this is my favorite map. It's a map from 17th century by Jean-Baptiste Nolly, so-called Nolly map, or I don't know, 17th and 18th century. And it's a map of Rome. And you see also black and white, but it's not that the black is building and the white is empty. It's black is private and white is public. And it doesn't mean if it's outside or inside. Like all these white churches are, of course, interior spaces, but are publicly accessible. So that's why they're white. And this easily could be a block with an inner garden, but if the garden is not accessible, then it's black. And I think it's an amazing map, and I really don't know why we don't have these maps of cities, because it should be and could be really easy to be done, like today, like in a couple of days. And these maps, I think, would be really important to any city, even the small ones, even the villages, to decide where you would like to build. Because if there is so much of a public space, then maybe you can build there. If there is no of a public space, then maybe it's not such a great idea to add something to that, and so on. But I don't think these tools are really used. Recently I found this, which I really recommend to you. It's called Urban Observatory. And by the way, it's been set up by the guy who invented TED Talks. And I just recently discovered that he's an architect, so that was interesting. And he's done this so-called tool to compare cities. And there are different type of categories, which I think is going to get bigger and bigger. And there are some cities already, I think 15, but there are going to be more of them. That would be nice if Prague could join. And then you can really easily compare the cities in terms of different qualities. And that's something I've been looking for years, and I'm really glad this is happening. And I think that's going to be really important for exchange of information about cities. So let me finish with these conclusions. And I hope that they're going to be clear based on the pictures we've been looking at. Public space is not the same thing as public life. And it took me a while to understand that the public life is way, way more important than public space. And what's interesting that if you look at the public debates, it's all about public space. In last 5 years, the public space became an important issue all around the world. And I think it's already a cliche, but okay, let's sustain it for a while. But it's so much about the glass and not about the wine, And I would rather talk about what's happening in that public space rather how it looked like. And the other thing is the public space, it's not necessarily exterior public space. That definitely changed recently. And it also means, of course, that interior space is not necessarily private space. And I think probably the most important conclusion is that too much of a public space is never enough. Let's say, I think as more of a public space, as less of a public life. And of course, there must be certain balance, but it's, I think, good to know to bear this in your mind, because if you really deeply understand this, then I think once you see a new building, you would say, great, like our public life is getting better because there's going to be less of a public space. And I think right now is exactly the opposite. No, right now is like, wow, new building, so less of a public space. Well, it's going to be worse. And I end up with this. That's a short photo story of one of my days. Just get out, walk on the street, go to work, go through the public transport, meet my wife for dinner, and then by public transport back to home. And like 99.9 or 100% of time inside of buildings or outside of buildings, but definitely very much influenced by the buildings. And I don't know how much time you spent in nature, but it would be good to measure. I guess it's not going to be that much if you compare it to your normal life. And there is, I think, pretty strong movement about protection of nature, and I've got definitely nothing against it. I'm happy with that. But there should be at least the same kind of movement about which would care about natural environment in the cities. And I'm not sure that we are there. At least I don't know any political party which would think about this would be a good program for them. And I end up with this image, or with two images. This one is from, I think, Montepulciano, and that explains the importance of a public space. My personal definition is that the public space is space where you can sit on the ground and nobody would shout at you. That's pretty, like good tool how to realize if it's public or private. Because if you sit on the ground and it's private, then in a minute somebody would come and will tell you. But this one is really important because it's the class of students of architecture who went for excursion in Italy, and we had a meeting in this square, and we didn't know if we are all, and we didn't know how much we are. So it was, hard to decide that if we can move on and if we are all together. And then this guy, who is philosopher, Petr Rezek, I think he came with great idea. He said, let's mimic the bus, and then let's see if everybody has a neighbor or that guy who's sit in front of him. And then we realized that two guys are missing. So I think that was really great. And the major discovery is that you can't do this in a private space. So, you can do only this in public space. So at least for this reason, I think it's really important. And the last one is this one, which also speaks about importance of public space right now. That guy has some old tool, but otherwise, otherwise they are doing the same. And basically none of them really care about where they are. And of course this is happening more and more, and it will have, of course, consequences. And I think it's worth to think about it. If this is as so much we care about the space where we are, then will it change to be better one, or will it change to be worse one? So I'll leave you with that. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Adam, for wonderful inspirational speech. I think you have many questions to ask, so I have microphones here. So you just need to raise your hand and I will go to you. So who's the first? Nobody?
And we can go for excursion. Great.
Nothing to ask, really. What is the biggest issue in Prague you are thinking about right now? Is it Hradčanská?
No, I think it's all under the definition I mentioned really seriously, that it's city to look at and not a city to use. And to me, that's visible basically about the amount of public toilets, for example. If you go to Stromovka, which is a pretty big park, and you would like to spend a day in there, you can't. There is a restaurant, or one, which is also interesting, is one in a pretty big park. And I think it's good to compare that type of park to Hyde Park in London and to see the amount of public facilities which are in there and which is in Prague. If you go to Deer Valley, which is super beautiful, just behind Prague Castle, you have to just walk through it and leave. You can't just, like have a picnic in there because, again, there's no toilet. So, or not only toilet, but, and I think that goes more, it's about, like I don't necessarily think that you feel welcome in public spaces in Prague. And friend of mine told me that there's, and I don't know if this is correct, but if that's correct, it's really scary. He told me that there's a statistic that only one person from 16 who visit Prague will ever come back. And that means that 15 just seen it once and said, well, okay, I've seen it, goodbye. The even more scary thing is that usually the hotel owners and the restaurant owners, they know about it. And once they know about it, they treat you like you will never come back. And I think that has major consequences. And I don't know, like that would be great to hear from people from abroad, but I don't really think that we treat people kindly and rightfully, and it would be a really pleasant city to be in. And another important thing about Prague is that, and I don't want to offend anybody, but all the time I feel like I'm on holidays. When I come from any city to Prague, I feel that everybody in Prague is on holidays. It goes with the outdoor outfits, outdoor shoes with all these like checked patterns. Nobody walks up the escalator, like everybody is like so much time. And there's absolutely no pressure. And I found funny that people from smaller cities in Czech Republic, they always said, like, how can you live in Prague? It's such a hectic city, And I mean, like, what? And we've been living in Bubenec, and I always like bring my friends there. Then just we sit alone in the middle of this public space, and that's like in 10 minutes one car passed by, and I was like, wow, a hectic city. One point about tourists, I think the tourists are the only people who really act naturally in Prague. They sit on the ground, they shout, they laugh, they do all these kind of things that I think should be normal, and we are just not doing it.
Okay, any questions now? Great.
Hi. When you talk, it seems that the architect doesn't have so much influence on the built environment today. Yet you still teach in architecture school, I think. How do you think that architecture education could change the city or help to make it better?
That's a tough question. But I'll start with, I don't really think that architects is such a big influence on the city. I would say even on contrary, I would say their influence is really minimal. I would be happy that the influence would be bigger, but it's not. But with certain, I'm explaining it a bit. But what I think is that that really built environment which surround us is really important. That I really think. But I don't know how many buildings in Czech Republic are produced by architects, but it might be something around 5%, I would say. Maybe 10, but no, I don't think 10. I think it would be 5 or something like that. So improvements of Hračanská, I really don't think that any architect work on that. Like maybe yes, but definitely not a good one, and maybe even not even any architect. Yeah, and that goes for many things. That's a technical detail, but I've got nothing against civil engineers, but they've got exactly the same rights as architects, so they can also design buildings and they can be approved. But if you ask about education, I think education is important, and by saying that, my only role as a teacher is to explain students that they can do whatever they want. That's that's the only thing I try, because when I study architecture, basically I was told that I had only two options, and the option is to go to work for somebody else or to set up my own office, and that's everything. And I had a feeling like that's not good enough, or I had a feeling like like how I could do whatever I want, like I can't do just these two things, and so I tried, and by myself, and I think I tried really different professions which are somehow related to architecture but not necessarily understood as architecture, from talking to writing to consulting to I don't know, tons of different stuff. And yes, there's pretty big space to be filled in by anybody, so why not students of architecture? So I think that's the, like what is it about education? Education is about to be critical, no? To be about to be able to ask questions and to be able to really to continue ask questions all the time and go deeper and deeper and try to get some knowledge back. And I like definition from Craig Dykers. He's really good Norwegian architect, and his definition of concept is that the concept is a question which leads to another question. And yeah, that to me is a concept. So what I try to do with students, I try to encourage them to ask questions. I think that's what I do.
Well, all those projects which we have seen, like Brasilia or Dubai, they have something in common. They're artificial. There was nothing 40 years ago. Like Dubai, it was small fisherman's wharf. That's it. And Brasilia, there was literally nothing. So do you have any example of a project which actually worked in that scale, like building an artificial town or artificial suburb?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I'm from Zlín. That would be probably the closest example I could think of. That it's, again, completely artificial city, because there was really 1,000 people and it changed to 80,000 really quickly. So basically everything was new. But I think that's a pretty good example about that it didn't work. But that's pretty more complex in Zlín. I think Zlín was probably the closest to be really successful. And it didn't succeed because of the external circumstances, which would be mainly Second World War, which was actually okay. Like Zlín could be able to deal with Second World War, but then it was 40 years of communism, which was really tough, but it survived. But then it was 24 years of turbo capitalism, and then that it couldn't survive. The good thing about communism. Everybody should know that communism was a really poor regime, unable to do anything in terms of city. Like people usually think that during communism that there's been built so much and it destroyed so many cities. But once you start to talk about it, you usually say something like a department store in the middle of the square in Jihlava, and then you think about a couple of other stuff, but it's not that much. And basically in Zlín, I think it was fine. They almost let ruin some stuff, but they didn't destroy almost anything. But then in after 1990, and now I think we are touching probably the major issue. It's gonna take a while. I hope you've seen a Superman movie, the part 1. There's a villain which is perfectly played by Gene Hackman. And he had a plan, and the plan is that he bought basically cheap plots in Nevada, in a desert, for almost nothing, and then his plan is to blow up California, that the California will disappear in the ocean, and then his not very important property would become an ocean front. So that would be the way how we can increase the value of its plot, I don't know, 100,000 times or something like that. And the developers in Czech Republic discovered a cheaper way of doing the same. and that is to change the color in a city plan. You don't need to blow up California. You just buy a forest, then you give somebody some money, and he decided it's not a forest anymore, it's a plot where you can build on. You can buy, you've been able to buy a forest or an agricultural field for a price of, I don't know, 5 crowns a square meter. Then you turn it in a plan, in a plot which could be built on, and then you can sell it for 100 or 1,000 crowns square meter. So, and that happened in every major city I know in the world in last 50 years. That's the reason for the expansion of the city. That's not anything else. Like it's, of course, it has something to do that all of us would like to have bigger amount of square footage per person, but it has mainly something to do that somebody would like to earn more money for something which is really cheap in the beginning and turn it into more important. And if there is nobody who is like basically fighting against, there's a great quote from Roman Koutsky. He's a good Czech architect, and he said that you can't chain yourself to the field, which I think is a pretty good idea. Like you can chain yourself to a tree, so that's okay, but if there is just a meadow or if there's a field, there's nobody who is able to protect it. And and I come back to the Zlín. What happened in 1990 that many people realized that, wow, there's so much of an empty space, like we can build on it. And that's how the city lost all its qualities. And basically what is funny, or it's not really funny, but it's really happening, it's happening right now in Prague 6, which is considered to be the most green part of the city. So again, there's so much of an empty land. And now there's an extension of metro, so well, it's great, let's build on it. And so, now it seems to be that I'm contradicting myself, because before I've been saying, okay, like if we get denser, it's better, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna build on the most valuable parts of land, which have been cheap because they've been protected. And by the way, I found great about Prague, if you ask what's great about Prague, is that still the hills are not fully built. I think that's great. No? There are no buildings on lead now. That amazes me actually. I'm kind of surprised that on that line, which is that basically border with the fantastic view to the city, that it's not fully built by housing. Like that would be great view to the historical center. No, so and the same for Petřín, and the same for Vítkov, and the same for all these hills. So I think that speaks pretty good about us. But I think it's only because we are passive, but okay.
Thanks. If you could remove one building from Prague, which one would it be and why?
I already answered that question once, and I don't want to repeat it because my that response was a National Museum. I have to think about something else. That's a tough question because basically I can't reply to that. There are probably thousands of buildings that I would be happy to be removed. But none of them is particularly important because basically the majority of them are these storage spaces next to the highway. I have no problem with building which is weird because I think weirdness is important part of your life. So there are many buildings which I really hate in Prague, but I'm happy that they are there. Like I think it's okay. Like I don't like Dancing House at all. I'm glad it's there. Like I don't like. I don't like the Faculty of Architecture next to it. I'm happy it's there. Yeah, it's absolutely fine. And I don't join any petitions which are usually trying to provide some new constructions because usually I think it's fine, it's going to happen. But exactly in the logic of the talk I've been trying to give today, I think the major problem of Prague is it also gets way bigger than it should be. usually once you show pictures from Rio, Sao Paulo, Dubai, the natural reaction in Prague is, okay, but that's different problem. Like we are not dealing with these type of problems. We are dealing with exactly the same type of problems. Maybe it's less bigger, but it's exactly the same problem. So I think if you compare the map of Prague from 1990 and look at it right now, you would see that it gets incredibly bigger. Once I've been shown an amazing map, and the map was the newly built buildings in Prague after 1990, and there was nothing else, only the newly built buildings and the the border of city, and it looked like a ring of Saturnus. It was crazy. It was like really empty inside and like everything around it. And of course, it goes for it goes for all these family houses, the so-called satellite cities. I can't really think of almost any which would be really good. And again, these all these storage spaces. I had this idea that the Tunnel Blanca would be great storage space. Don't tell anybody that, because I think it's been mistake that it's been done, but then there was this talk that now it's almost finished. What should we do with that? And then the discussion was always like, okay, so we have to finish it and then use it, or we have to put just land inside, or something like that. We would need to bury it, and that would be so difficult. And I always no, you don't have to bury it, just leave it empty and put all storage inside, because it's in the center of the city, which is great. It's pretty, well accessible, so it's also great. And then you can really destroy all these storage spaces around Prague. So, and then also the traffic situation wouldn't get any worse. So, yeah.
The last one.
Why you think that people abroad take care about the public space more than people in the Czech Republic in general? And second, you handle this topic for many years. You write articles, etc., etc. Do you think it's going better in Prague or the Czech Republic as many years ago? Thank you.
The first one, I think it has something to do with the historical development in Czech Republic, and especially with the era of communism. And it has definitely something to do that I remember as, you remember probably much more than I do, but I remember that as a kid when I was 6 or 7, and I live in an apartment building of 26 apartments, that we've been forced to clean the public space around the house, and I really hated it even as a kid. And looking back, it was not that bad. I think it was quite fun actually with other people, and right now maybe I would like to do that, but that time I really hated it because it was forced. And so when it ended in 1990 and suddenly it was not necessary anymore, I was like, great, now we don't have to care about it. And I think that really deeply influenced with the idea of neoliberalism, all Czech culture. And it's visible, no? Inside of the apartment, it's relatively clean. In the corridor, it's a bit worse. And outside of the house, it's terrible. And that, to me, really improved. Slightly, but improved. But the major difference, what I see, it's generational difference. And the difference is that my generation, and I think majority of you are in here, doesn't have any chalets. We don't have any secondary homes. So, or maybe tons of you do, but tons of not. And that means that I don't leave city for a weekend, and I don't say anything like, wow, great, now I can leave the city or something like that, finally it's weekend, so I have to get out or something like that. So I don't say anymore, and I don't mean anymore. And that means that I spend my time in a city, especially in the weekend when I have time, and that means I've got higher expectations about the quality of the public space. And that doesn't go only to me, and it goes to anybody. And I think if you ask about what's getting better, this probably 5 or 6 years ago, I had simple idea, and the idea was that if we start to look at things and more to talk about them and more to write about them and more to care about them, at the end, it's going to result in better quality. I think that goes for everything. That goes for quality of food, that goes for quality of movies, that goes for quality of cars, and so on and so on. And I had a feeling that the debate about public space is in no proportion to its importance. I thought that the importance is way bigger than if it's part of a public debate. And decided on my own to work on change that. And I think I've been lucky enough that I became a part of basically a natural movement of tons of other people. And so, you know, like we are definitely not there. I think the attention of the space and life is not as high as it should be, but we are getting there. And a friend of mine really explained it to me. He said that we are improving in things that we are doing regularly. So if you buy food 3 or 4 times a day, in 20 years, you're going to get better and better in that. The same goes for shoes and for clothes, but it doesn't go for building buildings. Because majority of you will never build anything in your life. 10% would, or 5% would build once. And so you've got no basically possibilities how to get better in that. And I remember, that's my personal favorite story. I don't know the correct English word, but it's, I don't know, immatriculation is fine. I don't know. It is this first day of coming to university that you need to make a promise or something that you're gonna study in there, and you should be well dressed, and you come and you promise to the dean that you're gonna be studying correctly or whatever. And I've been coming to watch this this event for 10 years, and I always seen guys of 18 or 19 years with suits and jackets like 4 inches bigger than it should be, or 10 inches bigger than it should be. I mean, that was incredible. It was like everybody just came in. And then I've compared it to the final exam, to the diploma presentation, and it got better, definitely. You know, like not 4 inches, but 2 inches or something like that. And then, you know, like, and so on and so on. So, yeah, I think all these events exactly like these are really important. And I really enjoy that very often there are billboards of political parties which says, you know, like, it's not about words, it's about action. And I always think it should be vice versa. I think it's about words. No? It's, you know, like what's Shakespeare? It's words. So that's important. So, yes, if you look at the programs of political parties, I think you know, not that it would be that important, but definitely you're gonna find there more about environment, about the city, about the traffic, about the condition people live, and so even they reflect that there is a higher demand about it. But of course, you can be skeptical and say that, or at least I could be easily skeptical and say the improvement is super slow. It's not definitely how I would hope to be, but when I started this, what I do, I was really impatient, and that really changed, and it changed that, you know, like of course I know that it's never gonna be the way I would like to be, and I'm probably gonna spend my life working on this topic, but yet, yeah, it's fine.